Stocks on Wall Street end higher, but Wall Street futures slump after President Donald Trump threatens a 35% tariff on Canada starting the 1st of August. Asian markets are trading mixed. The GIFT Nifty, though, is indicating a gap down start for our own markets. Oil prices hold steady following a 2% drop overnight that was driven by President Donald Trump's new tariff threats. Gold prices also hold firm, but the dollar continues to remain firm, countering trade tensions. TCS reports a 3.3% revenue decline on a constant currency basis sequentially in the first quarter. Margins are marginally higher than expectations. Deal wins remain steady but drop below the $10 billion mark. The ADRs of Infosys and Wipro fall up to 5% in overnight trading. Glenmark has signed a landmark licensing pact with US pharma company AbbVie to develop and sell a drug to treat multiple myeloma. Glenmark retains rights to India and emerging markets. AbbVie will pay $700 million upfront for exclusive rights to North America, Europe, Japan, and Greater China. And Rohit Java will step down as the CEO of Hindustan Unilever just 2 years into office. Priya Nair, who is currently the president of the beauty and well-being at Unilever, will take charge, becoming the first woman to lead India's largest consumer staples company. Well, if you thought that a Friday is going to be devoid of any news flow, make no mistake, there is a lot that you need to keep track of. You're watching Power Breakfast here on CNBC TV18 in the Mumbai News Center. I am Hormuz Fatakia. Let's first take a look at how the Asian markets have started off. Well, they started off fairly okay, and the Hang Seng is still holding on to some bit of those gains, trading with gains of around 0.8%. The Taiwanese index is absolutely at the flat line. And most of the other indices too have recovered from the lows. The Nikkei is currently up 0.2%. The Kospi continues to outperform, still trading with gains of around 0.5%. So the Asian market screen is not reflective of what's happening in the US with regards to the Dow futures, or also on the GIFT Nifty for that matter, because the Dow futures are down over 200 points. The GIFT Nifty too is indicating a gap down start for our own markets, and of course we have our own domestic factors to deal with in case of this gap down start. A 140 point downtick is what the implied open is currently suggesting, 130 to 140 point downtick. So a gap down start is what is likely to take place at the final trading day of the week. And as just was mentioning, the Dow futures have slipped. They were flat earlier in the morning, but then they saw a sudden dip after US President Donald Trump teased a major statement that he intends to make on Russia on Monday. Now, the Dow futures are down over 200 points, while those on the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq are also trading with losses of anywhere between 30 points to 120 points respectively. Now, a major statement is expected on Russia on Monday, as he said that he's disappointed with President Vladimir Putin. He also announced that Canada will face a 35% tariff starting the 1st of August, further fueling uncertainties around the global tariff war, which he had initiated in the month of April. Now, overnight, Wall Street ended at record high levels as the S&P 500 inched higher, closing in on that 6,300 mark. The Nasdaq too recovered from the lows of the day, ended above the flat line. The Dow was also an outperformer, gaining close to 200 points in the trading session overnight. So that is the market action from the US overnight, and it was the other contributing factor, of course, was Nvidia, and it closed above that $4 trillion valuation milestone for the second straight day, and that also contributed to the move higher on the indices. But that is all the global market action that we have. But all of these cues, how will they impact our own markets, because they've just emerged a few minutes earlier? Our research team joins in with the trade setup and the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and of course with the FNO setup as well. But firstly, let's go across to Sudarshan, who joins in with cues from the FNO space, which is equally important to track, because yesterday was the weekly options expiry and the Nifty faced some selling pressure, and that's likely to continue today as well, Sudarshan.
That's correct. So after being in the narrow range for the last few sessions, yesterday we saw a sharp dip in the market courtesy of fall in IT stocks that we saw. It did recover minutely in the last hour, but again, the earnings came from TCS and the earnings are looking weak and it might impact on other IT stocks today. And when cues on the global front are looking not that positive, it's largely on the mixed side, and GIFT Nifty tracking everything is indicating a sharp drop, at least at the opening tick. As far as the flows are concerned, in the cash market, you'll see both FIs and DIs buying. But if you look at the index futures, the sell figure was more than rupees 1,800 crore, and they have reduced long positions by more than 5,000 contracts. And in front of that, they have added short positions of almost 4,000 contracts. And now FI long exposure has reduced to less than 24%. Coming to the option data, 25,500 call has seen maximum addition. Till yesterday, the maximum addition used to be seen in 25,700 call, but yesterday it was first time that 25,500 call has seen the maximum addition, and on the put side, 25,100 was the most active one. So now support for Nifty has moved lower. Its first support is around 25,240, that is 20-day moving average. If we breach that, next support comes around 24,950, that is 50-day moving average, and resistance remains around 25,700. Two stocks that remain in the band is RBL Bank and Hindustan Copper, and on the back of TCS earnings, keep an eye on all the large cap names like HCL Tech and Infosys as well as Wipro.
Well, the signs of that were evident with how the ADRs fared overnight. So, Darshan, thanks a lot for that important FNO update. You need to keep an eye out on these important levels as we go into the weekend. But over to Ria now, and there is a whole host of stocks other than TCS that you need to keep an eye out for. Ria, good morning.
Well, yes, Hormuz, good morning. A lot of stocks to keep your eye out on today. As you said, the Q1 numbers have started rolling in. First up for TCS, the rupee revenue has gone down by around 1.6% sequentially. EBIT margins have come in at 24.5% this time around, largely in line with expectations. The constant currency revenue has declined by around 3.3% sequentially versus our estimates of around 1.4% decline. Moving on to Anand Rathi, the AUM has risen by around 27% on a year-on-year basis to about rupees 87,797 crores. The company has managed to meet 88% of the FY26 AUM guidance, and the margin has also improved as cost-to-income ratio has dipped by around 571 basis points on a sequential basis. Moving on to Tata Elxsi for their Q1 numbers, net profit has gone down by around 21% on a year-on-year basis, and even the revenue has declined by around 1.8% for this one. For IREDA, for the Q1 numbers, the gross NPA has come in at 4.13% versus 2.45% on a sequential basis, and the net NPAs have also come in at 2.06% versus 1.35% in the last quarter. Moving on to HUL, Rohit Java is going to step down as the MD and CEO of the company with effect from the 31st of July of this year, and HUL has now appointed Priya Nair as the new MD and CEO of the company. For Glenmark Pharma, this one will also be in focus today. Its arm Glenmark Innovation and AbbVie have announced an exclusive global licensing agreement for ISB 2001, which is Glenmark's molecule under development for multiple myeloma. And as a result of this, IGI, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Glenmark, will receive an upfront payment of around $700 million versus expectations of a $200 to $300 million deal. The next one that will be in focus is Centrum Capital. The board is going to consider fundraising options via equity and other methods on the 15th of July.
A lot of stocks that you need to keep an eye out for. Ria, thanks a lot for that update. Take a short break. On the other side, we get you the results review of TCS after its first quarter performance. Stay tuned. Back on the other side. Welcome back on to Earnings Central. Then it was a weak overnight session for the ADRs of Infosys and Wipro. Both of them ended with losses of around 5% after the results that TCS reported overnight and after market hours yesterday. Both they were a miss on the first quarter, and in comparison to the estimates, Rima has the highlights of the quarter gone by. Rima.
So the one-line summary of TCS's numbers is that growth disappoints. It's a much weaker start to the financial year. Margins are in line, deal wins are steady. So the company's top line, constant currency revenue growth, has declined by 3.3% on a sequential basis. This is much worse than consensus expectation, which was anticipating a drop of 1.4%. The problem is the international markets, which is ex of BSNL, which has been propping up growth in the Indian market. So one, the contribution of BSNL dropped sequentially, so that explains the reason for the revenue decline. But even the international markets, revenues have fallen by nearly 0.6%. And again, it's the global uncertainty which weighed on growth. Deals got deferred, deals got paused. No major cancellation, not big, but decision making was impacted. So all that hurt the top line, and it was much worse than what the company and the street was anticipating. On margins, 24.5% marks an expansion of 30 basis points on a sequential basis. One reason is there were no wage hikes this time. And two, there was a slightly lower contribution of BSNL sequentially, which was margin dilutive. Deal wins have been fairly robust. They've come in at $9.4 billion, lower compared to 12.2 in the prior quarter, but largely in line with the four-quarter average. Headcount went up by nearly 5,000 on a sequential basis. This perhaps can be explained because the company added to their headcount, anticipating a recovery in demand, but that recovery in demand didn't take place. So the company was just left with higher capacity. Attrition also inched up a little bit, 13.8% versus 13.3%. But in a nutshell, growth still remains very uncertain given the tenuous global environment, and the company's Q1 revenue growth has disappointed the street.
Rima, thanks a lot for that. Let's also now listen to what the management had to say during the earnings presser.
We are still confident and optimistic that international revenue in FY26 would be better than our FY25 revenue. Overall, it will be too early to call out when growth will resume, which to a great extent depends on more clarity emerging in the macroeconomic scenario. But I think with all the trade discussions coming to a close, the new bill that's been enacted in US gaining presidential sanction approval, I think things should become clearer maybe towards the end of July or early August.
It's a little more than our comfort level. We are 11 to 13% is our comfort range. It is a little more than that. We continue to make efforts to bring it down, through continuous employee engagement, doing all the right things which we normally do with our people. We continue to do that and bring it down is what our aspiration is always, and that is what we will continue to do.
And we will be joined by the management of TCS at 8:35 this morning. The entire top brass will be speaking to CNBC TV18, so stay tuned. It promises to be an interesting conversation. But the other major news that came up last evening was the fact that Hindustan Unilever has announced the appointment of Priya Nair as its new managing director and chief executive officer from the 1st of August, with Rohit Java stepping down from the board following mutual agreement. Now, Mangalam is joining in with more on these developments. Mangalam, the first woman face of HUL.
First woman face of HUL, and I think it's about time as well, because they've always said 6 out of 10 of their customers are women, and they've spawned a lot of women leaders in the past as well. But be that as it may, the important news, Rohit Java, within 2 years of his appointment as MD and CEO, has decided to step down to pursue the next chapter in his professional and personal journey. More importantly, Priya Nair, who's currently the Executive Director, Beauty and Wellbeing at Unilever, has been brought back to India. Remember, she will be leading the company as MD and CEO with effect from August 1, 2025 itself. She's been a Unilever lifer. She's, joined Hindustan Unilever in 1995, led the company through growth in home care along with other verticals, and is known for digitization, premiumization, and purpose-led brand building. That is something that HUL has called out as macro trends as well. Amidst all of this, the street, remember, will be keeping an eye out on a couple of things. One, the stock HUL has returned virtually nothing in the last 5 years after moving nearly 4 times in the previous 5 years. So can glory days for HUL return? There are 3 things I'll be watching out for. Volume-led growth amidst improved consumer sentiment right now. Secondly, recovery in beauty and wellness through premiumization. And finally, they've recently appointed Rajneet Kohli to head the foods vertical. After the demerger of the ice cream business, what are the innovations and growth that they can bring in the foods portfolio is something I'll be watching out for.
Important developments there. Bangalam, thank you for that update. And Glenmark was the other major announcement last evening. The company signed the landmark licensing pact with US pharma company AbbVie to develop and sell a drug to treat multiple myeloma. Ekta is right here to talk to us about this mega billion-dollar deal.
Well, yes, it's definitely a big landmark deal when it comes to R&D in India. So Glenmark's arm, which is IGI, Ichnos Glenmark Innovation, and AbbVie have signed a licensing deal for a drug under development for Glenmark, which is ISB 2001. It is being developed for multiple myeloma by Glenmark. So now what is going to take place is that Glenmark is out-licensing this molecule to AbbVie, and Glenmark is now going to receive $700 million in terms of upfront payment for this particular molecule. The entire development and manufacturing for this molecule for North America, Greater China, and a couple of other geographies will stay with AbbVie, whereas Glenmark will look at emerging markets in India. Glenmark is also eligible to get $1.225 billion in terms of milestone payments and is also eligible for tiered double-digit royalties on net sales. Now remember that this particular molecule is currently in phase 1B trials. AbbVie is going to take over the molecule. They're going to see it through phases. If in case the milestones get met, then Glenmark will get this additional milestone payment. And if in case this particular molecule then eventually meets the market or sees commercial sales, then they'll get royalties. So this is going to be a process of say 4 to 5 years to monitor where exactly this particular molecule stands. Now, for Glenmark itself, they are planning to be a integrated pharmaceutical company. They're going to keep the cash to utilize it for R&D on IGI's books and separately pay dividend to Glenmark and additionally keep the cash on books. Possibly, reward shareholders is something that they'd look at as well.
Keep an eye out on that, Ekta. Thank you for that development. In fact, Ekta also spoke to Glenmark CMD Glenn Saldana on how this deal aids the company. Listen into that conversation.
Clearly, this is a huge moment for us, right? I mean, we've been working on this for 25 years in the innovation space, and I think 2001 really is a world-class asset, right, which can be transformational for patients. From a partnering perspective, the way we've structured it is we've partnered with AbbVie for US, Canada, Europe, China, Japan, most of the developed markets, and Glenmark will commercialize this product eventually, right, in India and all emerging markets. So the two of us will make sure this asset is successful going forward.
So explain the financials to us. $700 million is what you would get upfront, $1.2 billion in terms of milestones, and the remaining would be royalties.
That's correct. So we get a $700 million payment upfront, and as soon as we get regulatory approvals, that money will be received by us. The milestones, the $1.2+ billion of milestones, are spread into clinical development milestones. So as the molecule progresses to clinics, we keep getting milestones. Regulatory milestones, so as the molecule gets filed in various markets, we get and approved, we get milestones. And then we get sales-linked milestones. So cumulatively, that number comes to $1.25 billion, for the asset. And then once it's commercial, we get royalties on sales, which, as you know, some of these innovative products, the life of the royalties is pretty long. So this could pretty much be an annuity if the molecule makes.
When do you think that it will probably hit the market or show any kind of results?
So AbbVie takes over all clinical development from here on. In terms of time frame, I can't give you a specific time frame, but typically molecules, if you look at other assets, right, in the space, they typically take about 4-5 years at least to get to commercialization.
Important development there for not just Glenmark, but also for the entire Indian pharma space. Take a short break. Cues from the commodities market on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and Manisha Gupta now joins in with all the updates from the commodity space. Manisha, good morning. There is a lot happening in the commodities.
It is, and there's never a dull day, Hormuz. And I'll start with copper yet again, because now we have a date in hand. The U.S. has announced 50% tariffs on copper effective from 1st of August. The U.S. president has said that they have received all the necessary robust national security assessment, and it says that the tariffs are necessary to protect the U.S. production. Copper is something that is used in defense, electronics, semiconductors, ships, batteries, data centers. So clearly, copper is an important metal in that sense. But interestingly, as you have the U.S. copper prices trading at a record high, it is up by 40% in this year until now. You have Shanghai copper, which is up 20% this year, and you have LME copper, which is up by 12% this year. So there clearly is a big disparity that we have seen in the international markets with copper, but I'm assuming that the world will be a better place after 1st of August once we have those tariffs in place, and then the things perhaps would start cooling down. But that's about copper. Take a look at the crude oil prices. 2% of a decline overnight, and this comes in, of course, after various tariffs that U.S. seems to be dishing out. And then apart from that, the OPEC report that says that the global demand will average lower in 2026. They also say that the demand will be lower going forward until 2029. That seems to have led to some profit-taking in crude.
We can only hope that the world is a better place after the 1st of August. Manisha, thanks a lot for that. You call time on this edition of Power Breakfast from me and the team that put this show together. Thank you so much for watching. But there is a lot coming up. Bazaar Morning Call will take you through all of that. Thank you so much for watching.